Hello my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon. This back here is Bernard. He's my October co-host. This is his final day with us in 2019. I had to remove my teeth because I could not talk with them in, but my look today is a vampire who recently got into a bad fight. But if you think I look bad, you should see the other guy. But no, the other day I was playing around and I was trying to create bruises, and this is all just eyeshadow. It was a bit of yellow mixed with purple and blue. Worked great. Anyway, in case you're watching this in the future, the reason I look like this is today is Halloween, and I wanted to do a special Halloween video, so today we are going to be talking about my top horror recommendations on Netflix. Now I do have to say, of course, Netflix is always changing its movies in and out, so hopefully they're still on there when you're watching this, in case you're from the future. First of all, the first thing I have to recommend on Netflix is The Haunting of Hill House. I did a whole dedicated video to this series last year, and I just rewatched it because it is that good. It's made by a man named Mike Flanagan, whose name is going to come up again on this list, and he's just such a master of horror for me. In fact, he's doing the Shining sequel, Dr. Sleep, which comes out next week, and I can't wait to see it. Normally, I'd be nervous about a sequel to The Shining being made into a film, but with Mike Flanagan at the helm, I'm not worried at all. And what I really like about him is that he can make things scary without jump scares. I'm not a big fan of jump scares. When I was younger, maybe, but now I don't like the feeling. But he makes it scary without using those sort of cheap tactics. So The Haunting of Hill House is about a young family that moves into a very haunted house. They're moving in order to flip it, you know, go in, fix it up, sell it, make a fortune, and then build their forever home. And the show flashbacks between the present and back to when they were living in that house. And that house, as it turned out, was very, very haunted, and we see that in the flashback scenes, and then in the present day scenes, we get to see them trying to deal with the aftermath of all of that. And there's a specific incident that happens in the first episode that brings them all back together. So that's all I'm going to say about that. If you haven't seen it, you have to. It's so, so good. Next up, we're going to go with an oldie but a goodie, and that is Psycho. Now I will say both versions of Psycho are up on Netflix. There's the original Anthony Perkins version, which is the one I'm recommending to you today, and the other one is the Vince Vaughn version, which came in the early 2000s, I think, like late 1990s, early 2000s. I think. I could be off on that a little bit, but somewhere around there. Now I'm going to recommend the original. It's so good. For me, the remake, Vince Vaughn just did not do it for me as Norman Bates. He's too Vince Vaughn-y. What didn't work for me. Anyway, it's great. It's about a young man who runs a isolated motel, and it's also about his mother. That's all I'm going to say about Psycho if you haven't seen it. Now, to go hand in hand with that, I will also recommend Bates Motel. Bates Motel was a show that I think A&E made, and it's on Netflix now, and it is about Norman Bates when he was younger and his mother. Vera Farmiga's in it as his mother, and Freddie Highmore plays Norman Bates. He's perfect, just perfect for it. Now I will say this, the first season I didn't care for it. It felt like they were trying to find their footing and they were struggling and they didn't know what they wanted the show to be. So I actually started watching the show when it aired on TV, and then I lost interest. But then I went back and revisited it after it went up on Netflix, and from season 2 onward it gets much, much better, much creepier. The final 2 seasons are so creepy. There's 5 seasons total, and if you like that kind of thing, I think you would love it. Next is The Babadook. This one to me is sort of that classic monster story. It's about a single mom who's trying to deal with the violent death of her husband, and her son kind of conjures up, at first she thinks, an imaginary monster in the house, and then she sees that he's like building weapons to try to protect himself and her from this monster. And then of course as time goes by, we learn that that monster might not be so imaginary after all. It might be the Babadook. So if you like just that kind of good old-fashioned type of monster story, I think you'd love this one. And I believe this was even the guy who made the Babadook. He had it was first a short film that he made, and it was just called The Monster, I think. Anyway, I watched it kind of, I wasn't expecting a lot from it. I wasn't expecting to like it very much, but I actually did. I liked it quite a bit. Next up, I'm going to recommend Gerald's Game. This is another Netflix original, so that will always be up there, along with The Haunting of Hill House. And this is actually based on a Stephen King story. And it's one of those really simple type of stories, which I loved. This was also made by Mike Flanagan. Yeah, okay, so also made by Mike Flanagan, who did The Haunting of Hill House. So it's about a woman and her husband go to a remote cabin for a romantic getaway. They're trying to bring the spark back to their love life, and so they're getting ready to be intimate. So kind of as a way to spice things up, he ties her to the bed and then has a heart attack and dies. So he's on the floor, she's restrained to the bed, and the movie is about her trying to survive and get free because, you know, they're not at home, no one's going to be coming by, they're out in the middle of nowhere. And we also get some really interesting flashbacks, and it's just really well done. It's on the story by Stephen King, but made by Mike Flanagan. So that one's very interesting, and I really love the simplicity of it. It's just a nice simple story, but really is enough to get under your skin. And can you imagine, like, what would you do? So check that one out. Next up, I want to recommend Get Out by Jordan Peele. It's really good. It's really good. It's one of those movies that keeps you guessing, keeps you wondering what is going on. And then even if you get to the point where you've kind of put it together, it's still so fun watching it unravel. But it kept me guessing, and I'm at the point now where I read a lot of, you know, thrillers and mysteries and suspense and horror, and it's the more you read it, the more you can kind of visualize where the writer or creator is going with it, and you can guess. But this one kept me guessing quite a bit. He's also put out another movie since Get Out that's called Us, but that's not up on Netflix yet, so we'll just go with Get Out for now. Next up is yet another Mike Flanagan recommendation, and this one is called Hush. Now, again, this is a really low-key sort of movie, but it's terrifying. But once again, Mike Flanagan knows how to scare the crap out of me without using those cheap thrills, those jump scares, and it's truly terrifying. And Hush is about this deaf writer who's kind of retreated out into the woods to live a very quiet and solitary life, when all of a sudden a masked intruder breaks into her house. She can't hear, of course, and it's just very terrifying. There's just something so scary when one of your, like, to think of one of your senses being taken away and then having to battle something that wants to do you harm. Very scary. And the woman who stars in it, she stars in The Haunting of Hill House as well, and she's actually Mike Flanagan's wife. So that's fun. She's in a lot of his films. You'll actually see a lot of familiar faces popping up in all of his films. And that's fun. I love when directors work with kind of a core base that they really mesh well with and work well with. It makes for very interesting collaborations, no doubt. The final two that I'm going to mention today are ones that aren't going to be for everyone. They're a little different. They're a little like more art housey in some ways, a little weirder, a little less mainstream appeal, but like those weirder type of things, these are for you. These definitely have, yeah, okay, we'll just get on into them. The first one is called Hereditary, and this one has one of the most shocking scenes, the most unexpectedly shocking scenes that I've seen in a film in a very long time. And I won't tell you about it because spoilers and all that, but it's just, it's almost funny, it's so shocking. But yeah, so it's about a family who is being tormented by a demon in a house. So like their grandmother recently died. She was a weird, very mysterious old woman. She dies, and now this family's kind of being tormented by a demon, and it's very, very weird. But it does star Toni Collette, and I find she is an absolute gem. And everything she stars in, she's just such a great actress that I love so much. So, I mean, you can check it out for her performance alone. She's amazing. And the final one is called I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. First of all, I love that title. That intrigued me on its own, and then when I went into like the little blurb about what it's about, it was kind of called itself a ghost story within a ghost story. And of course you guys know how much I love a good ghost story, so I was intrigued. And so to read you the blurb from the internet here from Rotten Tomatoes, it says, I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House tells the story of Lily, a young nurse hired to care for Helen Bloom, a best-selling author of ghost stories who has chosen to live out her final days in her beloved country home, a home that holds a horrific ghost story of its own. So that's where the kind of ghost story within a ghost story comes in. There's something very simple about it, once again, but very beautiful, and it's very different. It's not your typical horror movie, so because of that, it's not going to be for everyone, but I think the people who it is for will love it. Like when you look up its ratings, they're not they're not super high, but I don't let that deter me too much. If something sounds like I would like it, I always give it a try. And that one, there was just something about it that I really enjoyed, and maybe you would too. So there you go, you guys. Those are my current horror recommendations for Netflix. So maybe tonight, if you're sitting around and you want to watch something spooky, check one of them out. Now, I will say, however, that I'm in Canada, so these are Netflix Canada recommendations. However, some of them, like The Haunting of Hill House and Gerald's Game, those are Netflix originals, so they will be up no matter what. But there are sometimes discrepancies between what's on American Netflix and Canadian Netflix, so do whatever you want with that, but hopefully you'll be able to find whatever ones you are looking for. And now, before we go, it's time to bid farewell to our good friend Bernard. So Bernard, thank you for all that you do or don't do, but you know, it's always good to see you, and we will see you again next year. So thanks so much for watching, you guys, but I will see you guys tomorrow with another book talk video. We're going to be talking about Alice Hoffman's new book, which is so good and I can't wait to talk about it. If you are going out, or you or your kids are going out, please be safe. I would hate for anything bad to happen to you or your loved ones. And I'll see you soon, guys. Bye.